You're listening to the Talking Shit About Getting Rich podcast with expert shit talker, Coach Roel.
We're really, really stoked that you're here. I don't know why that word comes to mind because that's totally not my age, but I'm very happy that you were able to join us here today, Catherine. As we were just talking, I just hit record, as you know. Tell us a little bit about where you came from. Like, you got a really interesting story, as Kurt was just talking about.
So yes, thank you. I'm excited to share my story, and with the entire intention of having people really get that any adversity that we have in life actually is a good thing, right? Like, that develops the muscle for us to develop that perseverance and that grit and that determination to make things happen. You know, it doesn't come from, you know, having a wonderful, easy, bubble wrapped, beautiful, sanitized life. That's not it. It literally comes from the struggle. And I share this with my twins. So I have 18-year-old twins. I adopted them when they were babies. I adopted them out of the foster care system. And this story, I feel like, encapsulates a huge part of my life and why I am where I'm at. And I'd share this with my twins all the time, is that, you know, there's this little boy, and he, you know, had those little atrium things, and he caught like a little caterpillar and he put it in there with the leaves and was watching it, you know, do its thing. And eventually it built itself a cocoon, right? And then nothing was happening. Just nothing was, visually, you couldn't see anything happening. And eventually it started to wiggle. And it started to wiggle some more and wiggle, wiggle, wiggle. And the little boy was so excited watching it every single day. Oh my goodness, something was happening, but it was just wiggling. That was it. And he felt so frustrated and so bad for that caterpillar. So he gently took something and just sliced open the chrysalis just a little bit to help it be able to get out. And he did, you know, he successfully helped the butterfly emerge and come out. But what happened is the butterfly ended up on the bottom of the little container and was never able to fly. It's because nature has literally created that caterpillar and us to struggle and to have the struggle. And it's only inside of that struggle that it was able to develop enough muscle so that it could actually fly, right? So when we take out the struggle from life, we take out the ability to develop that muscle to fly, right? So like my background, I am left being extremely grateful. Let me tell you, in the moment, I was not grateful. It was a struggle. But, you know, when you can look back and see like, okay, and use it and use every moment, you know, every moment in my life, I actually have a process that I use to be able to, you know, basically suck the bone marrow out of it to get as much out of it as I possibly can for my benefit. And I'll walk through that in a moment. So to answer your question, I'm actually Canadian. I was born Canadian in a teeny tiny little town in northern Canada, and born to a teenage mother, and father nowhere to be seen. And the struggle was real. She was, you know, poorer than dirt, very, very poor, and went on to make some not so great choices. I ended up having a couple of other brothers, and we were in and out of many, many, many homes as kids. It was a very abusive situation. It was not fun. I ended up going to 13 different schools in that time, and so I was the new kid a lot. And I actually didn't learn how to read till I was in the 8th grade, because when you go through that many schools, nobody catches, you know. But here's what I learned. I learned as a kid very early on that when it comes to school, they're not actually interested in, they're interested in an answer. And when you can figure out what that answer is that they want, you win. Mm-hmm. Right? So it's not about thinking, and I tell my twins this all the time, it's not about thinking, it's about getting the right answer. And school, unfortunately, is still like that today. So, which is why, I encourage people to get their kids into higher level education, not just traditional schools. Anyway, so went on to continue to provide and protect, for my brothers. I've been working since I was 13 years old. We would go days without food. I mean, it was awful. And I eventually got my brothers adopted by their fathers. And at the age of 16, I was adopted.
Wow. So you actually raised your brothers before you actually were adopted yourself. That's amazing.
And it changed the trajectory of my life forever. Because literally at that time, and it wasn't like a Hallmark adoption. At the time, we were in and out of living with our mother, like ongoingly. It was this it was a mess. Anyway, at the time, we were living with her boyfriend, who happened to be a drug dealer. And I was in high school at the time, obviously. And the school at the time found out who I was living with, and I essentially became a drug mule. And I knew that the trajectory of my life was not good. Like I knew, right? And long story short, family friends were getting married and I was invited to the wedding. I went, and literally the night before their wedding, I asked them to adopt me.
Oh, wow.
Shared with them everything that I was doing. And without hesitation, they said yes.
Awesome.
Oh, amazing.
It changed my life forever. So they got married, and rather than going on their honeymoon, they went and traveled for 12 hours to go get all my stuff to get me into high school, bring me back. And literally, I am forever grateful for my parents. So,
wow, amazing.
Yeah, changed the trajectory of my life forever. And then, so adopting teenagers isn't as bad as it sounds. You can change your life.
Do you think that would be the pinpoint, like the turning point for you, being adopted at that point?
Huge turning point for me. I'm clear, had that not happened, the probable predictable future of my life was really grim. Mm-hmm. Like that literally changed my life forever, was that moment. That was a defining moment in my life. And then so went on, I graduated high school, went on to college, and knew that there was something more to life than living in a small town than what I was born into. And so I left the continent. I traveled the world. I went to Japan, Korea, traveled around Australia for 6 months. Like I knew there was something more. And I came back to Canada and landed there and just started to create my life. And then eventually, I did a ton of volunteering. I just love to give and serve. And again, anytime I encourage my kids, like I always make sure that they are always in some sort of activity that teaches them leadership skills, team building skills, and has them serving something bigger than themselves. I think that it teaches a lot. And I've taught my kids, listen, I don't care what you do with your life. I just care that you go out into the world and become contributing members of society. You do that, you win. I don't care how it looks. So anytime we can do that, I think it's a huge difference. And so through the volunteering, I had met my husband, who was American, and he had a dream. He lived in California, and he had a dream, and we ended up moving to the U.S. after we got married, lived in California. We took his dream and we turned it into a multi-million-dollar company, which was a lot of fun. And that's like truly my entrepreneurial spirit just like exploded. I really got to love that part of building businesses and being an entrepreneur and capitalism and the brilliance of it. And we went on to obviously we wanted to start a family. We weren't able to. I wasn't able to conceive. And we, through a series of events, ended up learning about something called Foster Adopt. And what it is it's children that are in the foster care system that, due to the action or inaction of the birth parents, their parental rights are severed. And these children will stay in foster care until they age out at age 18. Wow. So they become adoptable, right? So you can become a foster parent just to be a foster parent, or you can become a foster parent with the intent to adopt. And so we ended up, through a series of events, long story short, I got a baby boy and a baby girl, which is exactly what I prayed for. And they look exactly like me. They were 4 months old when I got them. And truly the joy of my life.
And these are your twins?
They're twins. Yep.
Wow.
Yep. And that's a whole other story in itself. But so yeah, we went on to do that. I wanted to be a stay-at-home mom, super excited to do that because I feel like God blessed me with these babies. And it was they were about 6 years old. My husband got really, really, really sick. And so we sold our company, and then 2008, 2009 happened. Our house ended up going from being worth $850,000 to $95,000 in California.
Holy smokes.
It's a joke. So anyways, we ended up losing everything and becoming homeless. My husband got sick, like what the heck? So I had to go back to work. I had to provide for our family. So what was I going to do? So I got a couple jobs here and there, hated it, hated my life. Like, this isn't what I signed up for. And finally got to the point where I was like, you know what? If it's my job to provide for the family, I'm going to provide. Let's face it. There was a lifestyle in which I had become accustomed to, and I wanted it back. And so I saw that through real estate investing as a vehicle to make that happen. And I love real estate. So my real estate investing journey was that we did buy and hold. I don't like tenants and toilets. Then we did wholesaling. I didn't like that. I mean, I liked the income, but I wanted the passive income ongoingly. We ended up, through a series of events, ended up moving to Arizona, and I ran a program called the Flipping Females. And I taught women how to invest in real estate, and we flipped about 500 houses with them. Wow. So that was a lot of fun. And flipping works in particular when the numbers work. We always say, do the numbers tell you what to do. And then through several mentors and lots of training, one of the things you can understand about real estate is that what we love about it is that there's so many different roles you can play as a real estate investor, right? You can, or any real estate transaction, I should say. So you can be the buyer, the seller, contractor, subcontractor, title company, the bank, the inspector. Like, there's so many different things that are involved in real estate. And so the question that I was asked of me is, out of all those positions, which one is the most secure? Mm-hmm. So the answer is the bank. The Absolutely. Bank is the most secure position to be in any real estate investing transaction. Because if you think about it, when we play Monopoly, right? Like, what's your favorite piece to play? Well, mine was always the bank. The bank always wins. Always.
Yeah.
Right? So I was like,
why
how
I
do you be
keep
the
losing
bank?
at Monopoly to my 11-year-old?
Right? But be the bank and you never lose. So I was like, well, how do you be the bank? And I just kept asking, right? And I think one of the gifts of growing up the way I did is there was never anybody around to tell me I couldn't do something, right? Like, I didn't know you were supposed to have an Ivy League education. I didn't know. Like, I was like, well, if you can learn it and you can do it, why can't I learn it and I do it, right? Mm-hmm. So I went and got myself educated and started my own hedge fund. We had, it was a vacation rental hedge fund. Turns out I don't like guests and toilets either. Right? So if there's anybody out there who wants to go into real estate, like, here's the thing I'd say is, try everything and figure out, like, here's the process. What worked? What didn't work? What did you learn? Who do you need to forgive? And what would you do differently? Like, you do that exercise in every single relationship, business deal, like everything, every situation, you can glean everything out of it and do better next time, right? So I ask those questions every single time. And what I got down to is I love being the bank and I love renting dirt. So now I have mobile home parks because we rent dirt, right? So and I've done residential development, commercial development. I mean, I've done a ton, which has been a lot of fun. But again, each one I learned something different. So back in 2018, My husband died unexpectedly.
Oh.
And it was such a horrible, horrible experience. He died unexpectedly and tragically. And I was left, we were in the ICU room, and I was holding my twins' hands as the heart monitor flatlined.
Oh, wow.
And what do you do? What do you do at that moment? Right? And prior to that, what I had learned was that the average millionaire has 7 streams of passive income. Because I had learned that principle, I had actually built up 13 streams of income for our family. So when he died, he didn't have life insurance, but because I had created that, it allowed me and my kids to take a year sabbatical and just grieve.
Yeah.
And work through the pain. And we had to work through the pain, right? Like I essentially grabbed their hands in a proverbial sense, and we dove hard and fast and deep into doing the work necessary to work through the grief. And it was hard and it was ugly, and I wouldn't wish it on anybody, but we did the work and we came through the other side, right? And we went through the process, what worked, what didn't work, what would we do differently, who do we need to forgive, what did we learn, and really keep going through that, right? And so, from there, it's like I got really clear. One, I'm too young to be a widow. I didn't want people to relate to me as a widow because it's like this pity and ugh. And I had so much more to give. So I was like, I'm going to continue to create my life in a way that works and that we love. And, I'm engaged to an amazing man, and we're creating this whole other empire that we're building together, which is a lot of fun. And my kids are, my son is now a U.S. Marine, serving as an electrical engineer over in Japan, graduated at the top of his class, youngest U.S. Marine the last 25 years, just crushing it. My daughter, she's about to graduate high school and wants to go into agriculture or something else, or who knows. And I just tell them, just try it for a couple of years, figure out what worked, what didn't work, what you liked, what you learned, what you do differently, and try something else. But give yourself permission to explore and to learn and to fail. Right? And I talk to my kids about this all the time. Every single week in our companies, we talk with our staff, is always in our KPI meeting. It's like, what are your wins? What's one win? What's one personal win? What's one professional win? And where did you fail this week? And what did you learn? We always celebrate our failures. And what did we learn? Because again, just like that caterpillar, it's only inside of the struggle that we develop the muscle to fly. Right? So if you can see, all through my journey, it's a whole bunch of horrible, horrible things happened. And because I chose to do the work, I was able to develop that muscle of grit and perseverance and determination that I'm going to make it happen. Right? And have it happen in a way that works for everybody. Like my company is Titan Impact Group, and our vision and mission is that we're the sentinels of the American dream, and we leave every person, property, and community better than we found them. I believe we can do that, right? Just think, if every human being on this planet took that on and left everybody better than they found them, how would this world be left? Right? We have that opportunity. Right?
Well, Catherine, what I want to ask you, though, before we get on even further, that's an amazing story, and thank you for that. The challenge I'd love to get your opinion on is, so Kurt and I are both coaches as well, in slightly different focus areas. What advice or pie in the sky, what would you say to somebody who's they're comfortable? So a lot of your story, what's resonating with me, or what I was able to pull out, is I have struggles as well. You've had struggles seemingly thrust upon you, not out of your choice. But now we have people that we both come across that are well into their adulthood, family life. And, you and I talked about this a few weeks ago, is about getting complacent and being stuck in the 9 to 5. I got a paycheck. Things are good. It's balanced. I've got a mortgage. I got car payments. Kids are in school. They got their activities. Things are nice and neat and under control. But I want more, kind of like the Little Mermaid in that scene. I don't care. Right. I want more, sort of thing. But that's where we find when we meet people, they're like, I wish I could do that. Like Kurt, you can expand and feel to chime in on this. One of your clients, you told me, said, it's difficult for me to find the motivation to work my business.
Yeah,
so if somebody's in that, please expand on that.
Yeah, the motivation piece is interesting because Roel and I were talking about the fact that, we've come to a point, maybe it's through struggle and pain that we've had that, motivation is not even a word that really exists in our vocabulary. It's more about the actions that we take on a daily basis to eventually achieve that long-term goal. So I guess what would you say to somebody that is in that position where they are comfortable and maybe lacking that motivation, but they have somewhere within them that desire to start their own business or to get into investing?
I love this. Okay, so here's what it comes down to, and you're going to be like, oh my God, not this thing again, is you need to know what your why is. But I'm going to say it in a different way, right? Here's what I believe is that money is like oxygen. The more you have, the easier it is to breathe. And the more you have, the easier you can breathe, the bigger the difference you can make in this world. I believe all human beings inherently want to make a difference in the world. And if you don't know what you're called here to do, I invite you to start listening to what's going on in your head and your heart. Meaning, how many times a day do you go throughout your day and you're like, why isn't somebody doing something about that? Why? Why is there not a solution to this? Well, let me tell you, because it's on your heart. So it's you. You're the one that's meant to make the difference. You're the one that's meant to create that income, to create that opportunity, so you have that freedom to make a difference, right? Does money, people say money doesn't solve problems. If you truly believe that, then you haven't given away enough money and made an impact with your money. So if you're saying that to yourself, I challenge you to really look at how much money you've actually made and the difference you chose to make with it, because I'm telling you, it does make a difference. So for me, with children in the foster care system, right? There's over 500,000 children in the foster care system, and about 350,000 of them are available for adoption today. So I was like, why isn't somebody creating a solution for this? Well, because God put it on my heart. It's been put on my conscience. So clearly I'm the one. And when I started looking around, I know how, I add commas to bank accounts and collapse timelines. It's what I do. And so if that's my gift and my genius is doing that, well, then what more could I do for adding commas to bank accounts for this, right? So if you look at it, these children that I talked to about before, that if they end up through foster care and they age out of the foster care system, on their 18th birthday, they experience something called Black Trash Bag Day. And that's where on their 18th birthday, they're handed a black trash bag, told to put all their stuff on it, and they're out in the street.
Oh, wow.
And what happens statistically to these kids is they end up drugs, prostitution, and incarcerated. So if we just look at the numbers around this, it's costing taxpayers billions of dollars to take care of these kids in foster care, which we all hear the horror stories. And there's some amazing stories, but mostly it gets focused on the negative. Then billions of dollars. Now they age out of foster care. It costs taxpayers billions more to deal with them being the drugs, prostitution, and incarcerated. So here's the plan. Right? The plan is that there's more than 350,000 congregations in this country. What if each congregation took on finding one family, just one, to adopt one child? Imagine 350,000 children now having families like I got at 16 that changed my life for the rest of my life. What if 1% of those 350,000 grew up to be as inspired as I got inspired and decided to go out and make a difference in the world? What kind of impact would that be? Right? So that's my why of why I build everything I build, why I make all the money that I make, so that we can take those resources and now, find these families, get them educated. It costs less than $1,000 to adopt these kids when you do it right. There's adoption agencies that specialize in this type of adoption. I mean, imagine the impact it would actually have in the world and the billions of dollars it would save taxpayers. So again, that goes back to, if you're not motivated, it's because you don't have a bigger why. You don't have something outside of yourself. Again, what I taught my kids, go out and be a productive, contributing member of society, a contributing member, right? So that's why I always had them in an activity that taught them leadership skills, team building, and volunteering, like somewhere where they get to serve at something bigger than themselves. So if somebody isn't motivated or whatever, it's because their why isn't big enough. I mean, let's face it, going to work, eat, sleep, I'm not motivated by that, and the other piece is that if they are in that chapter of their life, the home, the family, the kids, like all of that, realize it's a chapter. Not all chapters are going to look like this. Like the chapter that I had with my babies when they were babies, I fully immersed myself in that chapter. And then when I had to go to work, had to balance out work and kids and everything like that. Now that they're essentially off and doing their own thing, I'm back to building a ginormous empire and focusing on getting all these kids adopted. So each chapter was its own season, and really diving into and loving those chapters when I was in them, knowing that eventually it would be a different chapter and that would be the time to focus on whatever it is. So it's the being grateful for what we have and what we love in the moment and really loving it. And, I say swimming around in it. We swim around in that love of our life. Like, it's extraordinary. And if it is the time to really go out there and make that impact, really, what is that thing that keeps nagging at your heart that you keep saying, why isn't somebody doing something about it? Because it's you. You're the one. It's you. You're the one being called. So figure it out and do it.
Yeah, one thing that definitely resonated with me, I heard Tony Robbins talk about the different seasons of life and how we go through a season where we're planting, where we're growing, where we're nurturing, and then you get to the phase where you're reaping. And, I think you're in that stage of now you're reaping from all the hard work and toiling and planting and nurturing that you've done. And now you're in the season where you get to not only enjoy yourself, but now you get to give more and to do more.
Yes.
Which is awesome.
And that's where the joy comes from. Like the impact that I get to make on other people's lives. I mean, you two know you're coaches, right? You coach because of the impact you get to make in other people's lives.
Absolutely.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Like you are literally the epitome of what I was talking about. Like every human being on this planet inherently wants to make a difference. You literally do that, as your career. So it's genius.
Yeah, but here's
Yeah, but
I'm going to be the devil's advocate here. And what if you that saying, that moment when you realize the ladder you've been climbing is leaning up against the wrong building. I went through that a few years ago.
Yep.
And I'm 48, which is weird because I know I look 25, but so many people are like plus or minus 5 years in terms of the audience that I have, plus or minus 5 years. And a lot of the conversations I've had is, oh gosh, I just spent my whole life climbing this corporate ladder. I'm here. I'm finally at that reaping the rewards season. Like you said, Kurt, what is it? Is it a simple answer to say you gotta find a new why to start all over again? Or do you even see it in that context as starting all over again? The reinvention, or is it an evolution? That's what I'm hearing a lot of people struggling with, is they get to their 40s and they're like, I can finally reap rewards. I have enough money saved in the bank where I can go on a family vacation. We don't have to just eat fast food all the time, or I don't have to always brown bag it to work. They feel like they've arrived, but as Kurt said as well, there's still something else. It's like, but I want more. How do I, it's the golden handcuffs. That analogy people say is like, well, I'm earning well into the six figures. I've earned it. I've finally made it to the C-suite or whatever. How do they change gears? What would you suggest?
So I actually just finished reading this really amazing book, and I had my team all read it. It's called The Gap and the Gain by Dan Sullivan. And what he talks about is that all entrepreneurs or successful people, we all struggle with this, is we're always looking like, here we are, here's where we want to be. Like there's always the something more, the gap, right? And as long as we're always facing that gap, we're never going to ever achieve that piece of it. And so the muscle that we need to develop, and that gives us that drive that we're always, moving forward, which is awesome. However, the fulfillment is missing, that like being fulfilled in whatever it is. So when we stop and here's where we are now, if we actually look back to where we were and where we are, and we focus on how far we've come and really lean into the gratitude of that. And there's a whole science around the gratitude. Like when we deeply tap into the gratitude of how far we've come, what we have accomplished, who we are, now we have the foundation of being truly like grateful for that and satisfied, but it allows us to spring forward into the next thing with gratitude rather than there's something missing. So when we go forward with gratitude, and I'm sure I'm preaching to the choir with you too, that there's something about like the universe goes, your wish is my command, right? Like when we go after something with gratitude, it happens easily and effortlessly, which is how it seems. I mean, there's still work and things we got to do, but when we go after something out of like lack and disappointment, it's even harder to attain it. Does that make sense? Absolutely. So it's that place of like, we are always managing our emotions, right? Like when we get to really mastering managing our emotions and staying in that flow state, that gratitude state, while being crystal clear, what is my calling? What is my mission? What is my purpose? And then moving forward towards that, it's a very different experience than something's missing and there's got to be something more. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
It does. It really does.
Yeah. So it's, again, you got to manage our emotions. We got to keep doing the work. We have to keep doing the work. The work works. And I think that's the other piece that I've noticed is for myself, talking to a lot of people that grew up in really great families, like loving, wonderful, nurturing, everything I wish that I had had as a kid, everything I created for my kids. And what they didn't get was that piece of the struggle that developed, that grit, that perseverance, that determination. That muscle is missing because they were so comfortable their whole lives. So how do we create that? You get uncomfortable. You start doing the work. You lean in and you dig and you figure out like, what is your fullest potential? Really, what is your calling? And as scary as it is, go for it. Like, why not? Right? A lot of people are afraid that if they go for it, they're going to miss. Right? But if you don't go for it, you missed. You miss,
yeah. It's almost like you'd rather, go after something and experience that failure that allows you to grow and develop than to do nothing.
Yes.
And I think that's the message that, we really want to provide to people that we're mentoring, that we're coaching, is to go after what you want. Like, really find your purpose, find your why, and go after it. And don't just be idle.
Celebrate the failures. Like, go after it hard again and again and again, and know you're going to fail. But if each failure, you can pull it apart and look at what worked, What didn't work? What did you learn? Who do you need to forgive? What would you do differently? When you can glean all of that out, all of a sudden the next step that you take or the next thing you do, you can accomplish so much more, right? Like, stop being afraid of failing. Mm-hmm. Play so big that you fail. If you're not failing, you're playing too small. Like, and here's the deal, especially inside of this, Canada, United States, like, these are extremely wealthy countries. And here's the deal, like, you feeling sorry for yourself, like, stop it, knock it off. Put on your big boy, big girl underwear and get to work, right? Like, seriously, if you have that ability to make money and to make a difference, it is up to you. So stop your pity party, and really, like, lean in, do the work, and make the difference that you're here to make, right? Like, I'm sorry, but in these countries, there is no reason to have a pity party. Like, we can, how many times have our moms said to us, there's a million children out there starving, and there really are. But here in these countries, I'm sorry, like, no, we have everything at our fingertips. We just have to reach out and do it. Right? Again, I tell my kids, I don't care what you know. Don't be a smart rat. I care what you do. What are you doing? And what kind of heart are you doing it with? Is it that heart of gratitude and love and making a difference and leaving everyone better than you found them? Or is it begrudgingly and feeling sorry for yourself and comparing and having low self-esteem? Like, knock it off. Knock it off. You're here to make a difference. So make the difference.
So 2 final things. I want to make sure I list these out because we got to cover these off. One, what's an example of a micro action that someone can actually take? Because I'm to be blunt, I'm sick and tired of telling people to sit there and think about it. Stop thinking, do something. So what's one micro action that you can suggest, Catherine? And number 2, we always end off each episode with trying to figure out together what would we actually call this episode. So we're going to need to ask your help to name the episode, which is kind of a fun tradition that we have on this podcast. So what's a micro action other than sitting there and thinking about it?
Right. I love that.
What's a micro action that you can suggest? Because there's many that can be done, but what's an inspiration that comes to your mind right now?
So funny enough, it's from another book.
Sure.
It's who, not how. People get stuck in the how, right? And it's the how do I do this? Like, stop. It's not the how. It's who. Who can you call right now to go sit and just say, can I buy you a coffee and pick your brain? Because I'd really love to learn more about how you did this, this, and this. Like, and start just like what you two do when you interview people. All of us can interview people. And let me tell you, successful people are more than happy to share their story and their journey and lessons that they learned with other people to help them move forward. Again, I promise you, all successful people are at the point where they want to be a contribution. So give them that gift and allow them to contribute to you. So get vulnerable and pick up the phone and say, hey, can I take you for coffee? I'd love to pick your brain about blah, 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 blah. And then whatever they give you, go do something with it and then circle back around and let them know how it made a difference in your life. Like, that is the greatest gift you can give to them and then give to yourself. And then, of course, all the people that you impacted based on whatever action you took. That right there, oh my gosh, do that over and over again. You're never going to be bored again and your life's going to be magnificent.
Excellent.
Awesome.
I love it. So reach out to somebody.
Yeah.
Reach out to somebody. Put yourself out there. Dare to be vulnerable. I love it.
And I think the other part of that is taking the action afterwards. So whatever advice they give you, what direction they give you, to actually go out there and do it.
Yes. Because here's what I say, like, lots of people want to work with me and stuff. And my ongoing rule is, and this is an actual word, you can Google it. I'm not being rude. Don't be an ask hole. Don't be an asshole. And
nice.
If you Google it, it's somebody who asks a lot of questions and then doesn't do anything with it. Don't do that. Like, seriously, if these people have given up their time to share their wisdom and their knowledge and experience with you, do them a favor, stand on the shoulders of giants, which is who they are, and go do something with it and do something better. And then circle back and share how you did. That makes everybody's heart sing and makes everybody want to contribute even more.
I think, Kurt, what do you think? I think I like that as a title or part of a title for this episode. Don't be an asshole with Catherine Bell.
I like that. I like that.
That probably
Wonderful.
sums up my style of coaching.
Yeah.
I like it. Don't be an asshole with guest CatherineBell.com. No, just kidding. Well, that was wonderful. Kurt, any final words, feedback?
I just want to say, Catherine, thank you very much for being on and sharing your story, sharing your wisdom, sharing your experience with everybody, and hopefully everybody takes it to heart and actually goes out there and does something with it.
Right? Yes. And thank you both for what you do and like sharing these messages. I mean, this is so needed in our world today. Like, really.
This is wonderful. This is wonderful. Last thing I want to ask of you, Catherine, where can people get more of you? Where would you like to direct them to?
I'm all over social media, like everywhere on social media. And then my website, Titan Impact Group. I'm all over social media. Catherine Bell, I'm there.
Titan Impact Group. Wonderful. Yep. Well, Catherine, this has been amazing. A lot more than what I previously expected going in, but that is a wonderful thing. So thank you again very much.
Thank you both. This has been fun. I love it.